Kianna Underwood, the former Nickelodeon child star whose talent once brought laughter and warmth into millions of homes, has died at the age of 33, and the story of her life, her rise to fame, her struggles, and her tragic final moments has shaken fans and reignited painful conversations about what really happens to child stars when the spotlight fades. In the early morning hours in Brooklyn, New York, Kianna Underwood's life came to an abrupt and devastating end. According to authorities, she was crossing the street in a marked crosswalk when she was struck by a vehicle. What makes this tragedy even more disturbing is that while she lay injured on the road, a second vehicle reportedly hit her as well. Both drivers fled the scene, leaving Kianna behind on the pavement. Emergency responders arrived shortly after, but there was nothing they could do. She was pronounced dead at the scene, her life ending on a city street that had no idea who she was or the legacy she carried. The details of her final moments have haunted many who followed the story. The idea that someone could be hit, left behind, and then struck again without a single driver stopping has fueled widespread anger and disbelief. It wasn't just an accident. To many, it felt like a complete abandonment of humanity. As the sun rose over Brooklyn that morning, news of Kianna's death began to spread, slowly at first and then rapidly across social media and news platforms. When the public first saw her name and headlines, reactions were immediate and emotional. Some people recognized her instantly, memories flooding back from their childhood. Others paused, unsure at first, then searched her name only to realize she was a familiar face or voice they had grown up with. That realization made the news hit harder. Kianna Underwood wasn't just another tragic story scrolling across a screen. She was part of an era, part of a generation's childhood, part of a time when Saturday mornings meant laughter, bright colors, and young performers who felt like friends. For many, remembering Kianna meant remembering a simpler time, a time when television felt innocent, when characters felt relatable, and when child stars seemed untouchable, frozen forever in the joy they brought to the screen. But real life doesn't work that way, and Kianna's story is a painful reminder of how quickly that illusion fades. Kianna rose to fame as a child actor during the height of Nickelodeon's influence on youth culture. This was a period when children's television didn't just entertain, it shaped trends, humor, and entire generations. Being part of that world meant being seen by millions, and Kianna held her own in an environment packed with talent. She stood out not because she tried too hard, but because she didn't have to. Her expressions, timing, and energy felt natural. She had a presence that drew attention without demanding it. She appeared on one of Nickelodeon's most iconic sketch comedy shows, a program that launched major careers and became a cultural cornerstone for kids in the early 2000s. Even in a cast full of strong personalities, Kianna made an impression. She had a spark that felt genuine, the kind that audiences instantly connect with, even if they can't explain why. Before many fans ever saw her face, they heard her voice. Kianna worked as a voice actress on a beloved animated children's series centered around family, kindness, and everyday lessons. Her character became part of daily routines in countless homes. Children heard her voice while eating cereal, doing homework, or sitting cross-legged in front of the TV after school. For years, her voice was comforting and familiar, even if her name wasn't widely known. As a child, Kianna lived a life that looked glamorous from the outside. Auditions, rehearsals, recording sessions, studio lights, applause. To many, it looked like a dream come true. But behind the scenes, it was still a child navigating adult expectations. Like many young performers, Kianna had responsibilities far beyond her age. She had to be professional, punctual, and emotionally available on demand. While other kids worried about homework and recess, she was learning lines, taking direction, and performing for cameras. Growing up in the entertainment industry means growing up fast. There's little room for mistakes, little patience for normal childhood emotions, and constant pressure to be on. While audiences saw smiles and laughter, Kianna was learning discipline, resilience, and pressure long before most children understood those concepts. As she got older, the roles became fewer. The transition from child star to adult performer is notoriously difficult, and for Kianna, that transition didn't come with a safety net. Hollywood has a long history of celebrating young talent and then quietly moving on when that talent ages out of its original appeal. Kianna gradually stepped away from mainstream entertainment, and with that step came a silence that many former child stars know too well. When the cameras stop rolling, the support often stops too. The calls slow down, the opportunities disappear, and suddenly someone who was once recognized everywhere becomes invisible. In the years that followed, Kianna's life reportedly became increasingly unstable. Despite having worked on major productions that were seen by millions, she struggled financially as an adult. People who knew her have spoken about her facing housing insecurity and periods of homelessness. For fans, this revelation was devastating. How does someone who once helped generate massive profits for networks end up struggling just to survive? It's a question that comes up again and again in stories like this, and it rarely has a simple answer. Child stars often miss out on normal education, financial literacy, and long-term planning. Many rely on adults who may not always have their best interests at heart. And when the work stops, they're left to navigate adulthood without the tools most people slowly build over time. Kianna's struggles were largely invisible to the public. Unlike some other former child stars whose personal difficulties play out in tabloids and viral headlines, her hardships unfolded quietly. There were no constant paparazzi photos, no dramatic interviews, no reality TV redemption arc. She didn't become a spectacle, she simply faded from view, slipping through the cracks of an industry that once benefited from her talent and then moved on.
When news of her death became public, the reaction was overwhelming. Social media platforms filled with posts from fans who remembered watching her as kids. Many admitted they hadn't thought about her in years, and that realization brought guilt alongside grief. People shared old clips, screenshots, and memories, trying to reconnect with the joy she once gave them. Others expressed anger. Anger at the drivers who fled, anger at a system that failed her, anger that yet another former child star met such a tragic end. Kianna's father shared an emotional message that deeply affected those who read it. His words reflected a pain no parent should ever experience. He spoke about the heartbreak of losing his daughter and questioned how her final moments unfolded. Did anyone stop? Did anyone try to help? Was she alone? Those questions lingered in the minds of everyone who followed the story. It wasn't just grief, it was devastation mixed with unanswered sorrow. As the investigation continues, many details remain unclear. Authorities are still searching for the drivers involved, reviewing surveillance footage and urging anyone with information to come forward. The fact that 2 vehicles allegedly struck her and both left the scene has intensified public outrage. Hit-and-run cases already provoke strong emotions, but this one felt especially cruel. A woman was left behind, her past unknown to the drivers who sped away, her future erased in seconds. Beyond the immediate tragedy, Kianna Underwood's death has reopened a larger conversation that never truly goes away: the treatment of child stars. Time and time again, stories surface of young performers who brought joy, profit, and success to major companies, only to struggle later in life without adequate support. Fame at a young age doesn't come with a manual, and when it ends, many are left without direction, stability, or resources. Kianna's story is especially painful because it wasn't defined by scandal or excess, it was defined by quiet struggle. It was the story of someone who once stood under bright studio lights and later faced the harsh reality of survival without them. That contrast has resonated deeply with people who see it as a reflection of broader societal issues: how quickly people are forgotten, how easily talent is discarded, and how fragile success really is. For those who worked with Kianna as a child, her death has been a sobering reminder of how young they all were. Childhood fame doesn't freeze someone in time, even if audiences remember them that way. Kianna grew up, she aged, she changed, she faced adult challenges like anyone else, but with the added weight of a past that no longer protected her. Her performances still exist, episodes still play, clips are still shared, her voice is still recognizable to those who grew up listening to it. In that way, Kianna Underwood remains part of pop culture history. But that legacy now carries a heaviness, shadowed by the knowledge of how her story ended. As fans continue to mourn, many are asking what can be learned from this loss. Some are calling for stronger protections for child actors, better financial education, mental health resources, and long-term support systems that don't disappear when the spotlight moves on. Others are urging compassion, reminding the public that former child stars are human beings, not just nostalgic memories. Kianna Underwood's life was more than her death. She was more than a headline. She was a performer who brought joy, a child who carried responsibility far too early, and an adult who faced challenges largely unseen. Her story forces us to look beyond the glamour of fame and confront the uncomfortable realities that often follow it. As the search for justice continues, her name is being spoken again, remembered again, and mourned again. And while nothing can undo what happened, perhaps her story can spark awareness, empathy, and change, so that fewer young stars are left to struggle in silence, and fewer lives end in tragedy like this. Make sure to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more celebrity updates just like this.